This is Throwback Thursday. I've got two books that I wanted to talk about today because they're sort of related. The second one is related to the first one that I'm throwing back. Okay, so normally for Throwback Thursday, I would pick a book that I really love that I don't think is getting enough airtime anymore, and I think should be still circulating as much as I wish it was. Yes, basically that. But this time it's a book that I've been meaning to read for a while, and I finally got around to it. And it is The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. This is Raymond Chandler's first book, published it in 1939, and I kind of hate that this is the first book that he wrote. It's kind of like John Green's first book, won the Prince Award, and, you know, Rainbow Rowell's first book. This is not fair. It's a noir mystery set in Los Angeles in the 30s. Our protagonist is Detective Philip Marlowe, who is like a wisecracking. You know what noirs are, right? I was raised on fake noirs. Listening to Prairie Home Companion on NPR as a kid, there's a segment called Guy Noir, and he lives in a town who knows how to keep its secrets. And I grew up hearing the jokey homage to it. I hadn't read a bunch until I'd read The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. Dashiell Hammett also wrote The Maltese Falcon, which I haven't read either. So I've just read, this is probably one of the quintessential, it's definitely one of the quintessential noir. You know, a private detective is approached by someone rich or mysterious or a hot blonde with long legs, and there's lots of really flowery language, and he tries to get to the bottom of the case, manages to get to the bottom of a bunch of liquor bottles on the way, and, you know, uncovers some the seamy underbelly of whatever town they're in. It is full of like the best metaphors and similes ever. So here's one of my favorites. Her whole body shivered and her face fell apart like a bride's pie crust. Because a bride doesn't know how to bake yet, because she just got married and so she hasn't spent a lot of time in the kitchen. Because someday she will have spent a lot of time in the kitchen and she'll make better pies, whatever. She put it together again slowly, as if lifting a great weight by sheer willpower. The smile came back, with a couple of corners badly bent. So just, it's full of this sort of language that is just, it's luscious. I really, really enjoyed the book. I listened to the audiobook of it, and the guy who read it was great. It was very gritty, and it was wonderful. The only issue that I had with it, and it was kind of a big issue for me, even though it was a short part, there's a really, really homophobic portion of it. And this was written in the 1930s, which that was the language of the time, and so you kind of have to read it with that in mind, but it still was, it was really upsetting. The way that there's a gay character, and the way that they treat him and talk about him is really upsetting. But if you can get past a couple pages of that, it doesn't come up in much else. That might be a stumbling block for you, which I totally understand. But other than that, it was a really, really great book. And there were lots of twists and turns, and just, like I said, the language alone, if you just want to pick it apart sentence by sentence, it's a treat just for that. So I finished that book, and the next book that I picked up, I talked about it in my book haul episode. Lisa will link it or put it here. From TLA, I got this book signed and I had been really excited about it, and that is Scarlett Undercover by Jennifer Latham. And I told you in the video that I didn't know much about it except that she's a PI, and I love girl PIs. I like any kind of private investigator. I mean, robot, alien, I don't care. If you're solving crimes and you're not like officially sanctioned, I'm all down for it, I guess. The only thing I knew about this beyond the awesome cover and obviously person of color main character was that it was about a girl PI. And then I opened it up and started reading, and it is a freaking noir mystery. It was the best thing to read after Philip Marlowe, all white, homophobic dude cast, was to pick up another mystery noir, but this time with a female protagonist who is a person of color and Muslim, and the book is just like the most diverse, most wonderful cast, and it's written like a Philip Marlowe. It's written like a Raymond Chandler book. This is one of the lines. She gets a tale. She was tall and blonde and white as marble, with clothes that matched her skin and a face like a cemetery angel. Like, what? So good. So it was the most perfect thing to pick up right after, and not knowing, and I literally finished listening to the audiobook, cracked this open, and was the happiest person. I might have like squealed and like kicked my feet around. It's wonderful. So Scarlett is a 16 or 17-year-old young woman who's graduated from high school early, and she's waiting a little while before she starts college because her older sister is finishing medical school and her residency. Their parents are both dead. Their dad was murdered and their mom died of, I think, a brain tumor that she didn't get diagnosed because she didn't feel comfortable going to the doctors or the hospital and being examined by a male doctor because she was a very traditional Muslim woman and she didn't want anyone who wasn't her husband to see her body. Which that really drives Scarlett's older sister and her desire to be a doctor, which is like just a great side story. It's so good. While Scarlett is waiting to go on to college, she starts a private detective agency. She gets a lot of tips from the then cop, now homicide detective, who came to tell them that their dad had been murdered. So she gets a lot of tips from him. She has her own office above a laundromat, and she's approached by like a 9 or 10-year-old girl who had seen her card that she left in some fancy boarding school bathroom, and tells her that her brother's been acting really weird and she thinks he's responsible for this recent suicide of another teenage boy. So Scarlett starts to investigate the brother and the suicide, maybe not suicide, of the other young man, and she gets drawn into this crazy conspiracy web cult thing that actually really involves her family and her father's murder. And it is so good, and there are some twists and turns and some things that I'm still thinking about and trying to figure out, and there are tons of great references to other noir stories. There's Hammett House, which is after Dashiell Hammett. There's some nods to Dickens. There's some really great stuff in here, and so good. It's so good. And it's scary and it's sad in parts, and the sisters have this great relationship that's really rich, and it's not a long book and it's a really fast read, but it was so great and really vivid and really well thought out. If you like noir books like Dashiell Hammett or like Raymond Chandler, which are good but a little dated and have problematic language for somebody living today, Scarlett Undercover is the book for you. And it works really well if you've got that vocabulary already, if you know the lingo, because it does take kind of a little while because it's very flowery, it's kind of thick and verbose. Instead of just saying she was crying, they're going to use 3 or 4 more sentences to describe how she was crying, which I love. I like words a lot. So that is The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler and Scarlett Undercover by Jennifer Latham. Thank you for watching this Throwback Thursday. Do all those nice things you can do on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, comment below if you've read any other noir books that you think I should read. If you have read Scarlett Undercover and you adore it as much as I do, or if you have any other like modern noirs to suggest. Yay! Bye.